I have not tried to use any of these mics on strings. Typically what I'll use for strings is a pair of ribbon microphones. I purchased these from a company called Royer, and they're not cheap. These are ribbon microphones. They come in a nice little case like that. They're relatively delicate microphones compared to dynamic mics, which you can beat up pretty hard. You want to be a little more delicate, a little more soft-handed with these. You can damage the ribbon in there, especially with loud explosives. If you yell right into the microphone or put it in front of something that's moving air like a kick drum, you want to be careful that air doesn't slam into it, because you can damage that ribbon over time and make the mic not sound so good. So what you want to do when you're doing something like that on a kick drum, or angle it a little bit so it's not hitting the ribbon directly. If you angle it like that or like that, you're okay. So they sound great in front of a kick drum, but angle them off. I purchased these mainly because I wanted a pair of ribbon microphones. I got them for guitar cabinets. They sound fantastic on amplifiers. Ribbons will typically roll a little bit of that, naturally roll off a little bit of that high, crispy stuff that can be a little bit jangly. They mellow out your tone a little bit, so they're well suited for guitar cabinets, which are so abrasive by nature. They're great on vocals. They're really great on strings. I also wanted to use these for room microphones. If I've got some close mics on a pair of congas or something like that, I might drop one of these back in the room to get the room mic. You could also use these on over a pair of congas. I'm a little more dubious of that because of all that air that's moving around and the delicate nature of these ribbons, but they sound great on so many things. If you're lucky to have a piano in your studio or in your house, putting a pair of these on a piano is a wonderful thing. Like I said, strings, kick drums, bass cabinets, you're really going to get your money's worth out of a pair of ribbon mics. There's a few different companies that make ribbon mics. This is sort of a mid-range level. These are designed for guitar cabinets. This is not their Royer's top-end ribbon mics, which get pretty expensive. But I did want a pair for other stuff, and I got those. Eventually, I'll probably get myself a high-quality vocal ribbon microphone. That's something that I'm sort of looking at doing sometime soon. They are a little bit more delicate, so be careful when you move them around. If you're leaving them on the stand, which I don't, I take them down at the end of each day. But if you do leave them on the stand, I suggest covering them up carefully with a little piece of plastic that they come shipped in. That way you can kind of cover those up and protect those from moving air. Is the big problem with ribbon mics. When you move them around in the room, you want to make sure that they're not getting any gusts of air. That's the big enemy of ribbon microphones. There's a lot of talk about being careful not to send phantom power to ribbon microphones, that you'll destroy them. I don't believe that's true anymore with the more modern microphones. I wouldn't recommend sending phantom power to these, but I think if you inadvertently hit the phantom power button and sent power to these modern ribbon microphones, that they would be okay. It's the older ribbon microphones, the vintage ribbon microphones, that are really delicate, that you want to be careful of doing that. I think you would damage the mic if you did that with phantom power. But most phantom powered microphones these days can handle a little spike of phantom power. Again, I would not recommend doing that. Don't mess up your mics, and turn off phantom power when you're not using it. But these are pretty strong little microphones. So yeah, just be careful when you're moving this around, and then at the end of the day, I put them back in the closet. If you do leave them on the stand, just make sure you cover them up with a little piece of plastic that comes with them. They do come with these beautiful little cases. I wish these were a little bit looser, a little bit bigger. They're a little bit tight to be slipping on there. I wish those just slipped on the top and you could kind of just drop those on the top when you weren't using them, but they're just for show. I guess you could keep your coins and stuff in there, but maybe Royer make those a little bit bigger so that guys can just slip them on. I just use the plastic that comes with them. Those are a little bit looser. But what I'm getting to here is that when I'm miking up a drum kit in a larger room, than this one. I don't really need any room mics in there. I've got a Talkback mic here that I use for the drummer to communicate with. And that picks up plenty of the room noise around the drum kit. I've tried putting mics back a few feet from the drum kit in the room, but the room is so loud with the drums going on in it that I really don't need to. So I'm not a big fan of using room mics in a small drum booth. It's kind of overkill. But if you're lucky enough to be recording drums in a larger room or a church or a hall or anything that's got a lot of great ambient noise, having a pair of room microphones back away from the drum kit is really nice and kind of critical. As long as you're recording in that nice slush environment, go ahead and try to capture an additional pair of microphones back away from the drum kit, 6, 8, 10, even 20 feet away from the drum kit if you've got a big space to work with. Capture that sound of that drum in that room. Put them on separate tracks so you can bring those up when you're mixing down and just how much of that room you want to hear. You might not want all of that room. You're going to be getting plenty of that in your overheads and even your drum microphones, your close mics. But put a pair of ribbons for your room mics and you are a hog in heaven. It's a beautiful combination. They get rid of some of that harshness and really make for a nice pair of room mics. Even just having one that you can bring up in the mix. If you don't have a stereo pair, even just having one back in the room to get a nice overall center reverberation is a really nice thing. But if you've got the scratch, go ahead and get yourself a pair. Take good care of them. They'll last you all your life, and you can use them on guitars, everything else under the sun as well. But anyway, those are great for that. Let me cover that up. Sorry, these are Royer R10s. Royer R10 ribbon microphone. They also come in a handy little carrying case like that. It's a nice little road case if you take them out of the studio. So those come with it, as well as the little mic clips. Nothing fancy there. They do have a shock mount that you can purchase separately if you want to put these in a shock mount. I don't have any need for that the way I'm using them. You could use these very nicely for overheads. If you drop these in on top instead of your condenser microphones, you drop these ribbons in over the top. They're going to sound really nice up there. They're not going to sound as bright as your condensers, but beautiful, beautiful up on top. I've even seen guys mount them back slightly behind the drummer, kind of like this one, facing down over his shoulders like that, to get kind of a drummer's perspective, you know, behind the drum kit. I think that was Steve Albini out of Chicago. I think he was using a pair of Coles ribbon mics back behind the drummer instead of the overheads. He's kind of radical. I really like his style. He's a good friend of mine. He doesn't know he's a friend of mine, but I'm a big fan of Steve Albini's recordings out of Chicago. That brings me to the last microphone that I'm going to show you today. Is not one that I use very often. Again, these were great. I used to work in a place in Chicago that had a really big room, and I used these as drum room microphones. They're called PZM microphones. I think that stands for pressure zone modulation, as I recall. And they come with a nice long cable, and they are powered. I haven't taken these out for a while. But these are interesting because the microphone basically is a little teeny mic that's sitting on a metal plate, and they sit on any flat surface. They can mount them to a wall. They've even got a little thumb screw there. The way I was using these was on the floor out in front of the drum kit, facing the drum kit. I would set these flat on the floor, spread apart, 10, 15 feet apart, angled in and facing the drum kit from 10 or 15 feet back to get the sound of the room in front of the drum kit. They're really nice for that kind of thing. You don't want to mount these on a stand. You want to put them on a flat surface, and it's going to capture the sound hitting that microphone without any reflection from another surface like the floor. Like when you're miking with any other microphone, you've got the sound of the source hitting the microphone, but you've also got the sound of it hitting the floor and then bouncing into the microphone. So these eliminate that because everything's hitting that mic at the same time. There's no reflection off the floor. So you might want to pick yourself up a pair of those. There's a lot of them used online. Lots of different companies make them. Crown, I believe, Shure. Anyway, pick up a pair of used PZM microphones and check them out. I saw an engineer, I think his name was Chuck, out of Chicago Recording Company on Halstead Avenue in Chicago. They're still in business. He was the first guy to show me how to use those. He used a pair of those on a drum kit that I was playing in there, and it was just amazing, the huge sound that he got out. Of course, he had a nice SSL console as well as a beautiful room, but explosive drums that he was getting. And the room's sound from that place was phenomenal. Just a huge, huge sound he got for me. Another option for a drum mic, drum room microphone, I should say, is just dropping any kind of mic you have out in front of the drum kit, maybe 5 feet back in front of the kick drum, maybe at about waist level, just as an overall drum room microphone. They come in handy. What I've found is having a microphone back over here for the drummer, it serves 2 functions. The first is capturing that nice overall, it's like another overhead mic from a different advantage. But the main reason I use this mic back over here is to communicate effectively with drummers. So often the drummer has 12 microphones out in front of his drum kit or her drum kit, and but no talkback mic, no way that they can communicate other than to stand up and talk into the microphone, which is not usually loud enough because they're for cymbals. Or down here, I can't tell you how many times the drummer has ducked down here to try to yell into the snare drum microphone to communicate. You're really putting them at a disadvantage by doing that. It's a critical line of communication between the drummer and the rest of the band to find out if he likes his or her takes, or if they want to do it again, or if they want to punch in. And if you can't hear what they're saying, it's a one-way communication, and it's kind of annoying as a drummer to not be able to be heard clearly. So the only way you can alleviate that is to actually open the door to the room and let the drummer come out and talk that way. But if you're kind of moving quickly, you might want to have a talkback microphone right by the drummer, so all he has to do is lean over and talk to it. And you can actually, I record this track, I put that on a separate track and record it. That way if he does anything funny or starts singing or clapping, I've got that picked up in there as well, and you also have a nice line of communication. When I am rolling, when the take is rolling, I will mute that channel so I'm not hearing all that kind of garbage of all the cymbals and tom-toms ringing into that mic. It's kind of masking the rest of the mix that I want to hear. So I'll typically record that but mute it, and then when I'm mixing down, if I want to bring that mic up a little bit to get a little bit of that trashy, garbagey sound, that's kind of a nice thing. It'll make it sound a little bit more natural, a little less perfect and clinical, and give you kind of a little punk edge to it. Another thing I'll do is heavily compress this mic on Mixdown. Squish that mic with any kind of compressor you have, and you can kind of blend that into taste to give you a little bit more of that energy. You'd be surprised how much you're getting out of that one little microphone. This is nothing special. This is just an old Audio-Technica, a large diaphragm microphone that I used to use for vocals, but I don't anymore. But it comes in very nice up there. I've got it mounted on a little gooseneck stand for easy adjustment. So that way you're communicating very clearly with the drummer. You'll be probably the only guy around that has that if you do that in your studio. Most studios don't have a drum talkback microphone. Talking about goosenecks, I wanted to point that I've got one over here as well. These little gooseneck microphone extenders are cheap, available on Amazon. You can get them from 6 inches all the way up to a foot, and they're really handy. They're nice. You don't have to move the mic stand. You can really angle your mic around however you want. Really easy to adjust and finesse. Got one here as well, and you can't see it, but I've got one on the ride cymbal as well to easily position those. Super easy investment to make. Obviously, the other thing you need to invest in is a good pair of drummer's headphones. You can use any headphones you have for a drummer, but what I find is going to happen is that in order for the drummer to hear the music in his headphones over the sound of his loud drum kit, you've got to really crank them up really loud. And that is dangerous and painful to the drummer's ears. And what's more is that audio is going to bleed or leak out of those headphones and get into other microphones. You've got 12 microphones around him, especially when he's not playing. If he stops for a break, you're going to be hearing that music into all those microphones, especially your overheads. It's going to bleed out and get into your other mics. And that can ruin a take if you've got something like a click track that you don't want to be heard in the final mix and you're muting out. If that's leaking out of his headphones and getting into your drum mics, you've got a problem there, and you're going to have to spend a lot of time trying to get rid of that in post. So my suggestion is to invest a bit further and get yourself a good pair of drummer's headphones. Coincidentally, you would think that I have some kind of a sponsorship with Vic Firth, which I assure you that I do not, but this is a pair of Vic Firth drum headphones, and they're really nice because they're basically like you might see on a gunnery range or target practice. When you put them on, they really eliminate the sound of all that's outside of them, which means that as a drummer, you don't have to listen to such high volumes in your headphones because your drum kit's not getting in there. When you put these on, it feels like you're stepping out of this world. It's really amazing how much these cancel out. They should provide these on airplanes, you know, when you get on a long flight, they should give you a pair of these to listen to music because they eliminate all other sound. And your drummer's not going to go deaf after a long session. You're going to protect his or her hearing, and you're not going to get any bleed into your other mics. So I highly advise investing a little bit in getting a good pair of drummer's headphones and just leave them hanging in the drum booth. I'll use them in the other applications, like when I'm recording a delicate instrument like a violin or certainly an acoustic guitar, something light like that. If you're adding acoustic guitar onto a song that has a lot of other music, the same thing can happen, kind of in reverse. You're getting the sound of the music coming out into the microphone that's on the acoustic guitar, so you'll hear that nasty bleed getting out into your track. So you put those on your acoustic guitar player's ears, and it's going to eliminate all that bleed getting out, and then you're just getting the sound of just the acoustic guitar or the light vocal or maybe a violin or something like that. So I will borrow these from the drum booth again during an overdub for things that are when you've got a situation where there's something bleeding through. You got to watch out for that click track bleeding through into other things that are soft by nature. Anyway, check those out. I don't have the number on those, but Vic Firth makes them. There's other companies as well, but I like these a lot. Don't forget about that little beast though, that kick drum microphone that you forgot was down below. You can pop that out and use that on big heavy duty drums and stuff like that, even a big tuba or horn, anything with a lot of low end. That's a great mic for it. Obviously, you've had it in your kick drum. It's probably got the lowest dynamic range you've got. It's probably going down there pretty low, probably to about 30 hertz, I'm going to guess on this one. So don't forget you've got that in your arsenal as well.